All right, it's a Thursday night, time for our Las Vegas Triathlon Club member spotlight. And we've got a very unique member spotlight tonight. We have the race director and owner of BBSC here, Travis Campbell. Hey, Travis, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good on yourself.
Oh, doing good. Thanks so much for joining us. This is going to be a lot of fun. And oh, I forgot my introductions, Bob. I'm John Mercer, president of Las Vegas Tri Club. There's Bob Gamble, co-host and board member of the Tri Club. Hey, Bob, how's it going?
It's going fine. Thank you, sir.
I'm already sort of out of sorts because we had our pre-meeting before we started here, and I had no idea that Travis is an ex-pro triathlete who raced WTU and ITU, and this is going to be a lot of fun to get to know Travis, not only his triathlon background but his race director background. But I'm already stealing a lot of Bob's introductory
Yeah, I was
material.
going to say, hey, hang on a second. That's my stuff. Come on.
So I'm going to punt right now, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about you, Travis.
Thank you, John. And thanks again, Travis, for being here. I know your time is valuable. And coming to us from the beautiful shore of Lake Mead there, you see the triathlon in the background. But actually, Travis is coming to us from Colorado,
Yeah, just outside Boulder in Colorado. Yeah.
Boulder, Colorado. So, but yeah, as John mentioned, it really took both of us by surprise that Travis is not only, an outstanding race director, but he's a pro triathlete and raced in a pro in the Olympic distance and half Ironman distance. And some of the comments that came out of Travis's mouth was funny. It's like, yeah, it's really fun doing a 4.5K swim when you only have a 90K bike. So we realized that Travis he's been around the block and he knows triathlon, which makes, in my mind, one of the reasons why he's such a good race director is the fact that he knows things from the athlete's point of view. So we're going to pick Travis's brain a little bit. And I'm going to, if you don't mind, Travis, I'm going to let you give us your background from South Africa and racing the World Triathlon Union, and which used to be the ITU International Triathlon Union, and racing as a pro. So how did you get started, and what made you want to become a race director after you've been doing all the pro races? So thanks and welcome.
Thanks very much. I came from a really sporty family. I think sport in South Africa is a big deal all the way through school. So I came from a family where my father was an endurance or long distance runner. My grandmother was a national track cyclist. So at a really young age, I learned to swim. And my dad kind of saw an ad for a local triathlon when I was sort of 5 or 6. And he dragged my brother and I down there. And yeah, we were, I guess, talented swimmers and runners, and that kind of leads to a reasonable triathlon. We raced on little BMXs or mountain bikes at the time, and it was a lot of fun, and we were kind of hooked from there. Back in those days, even the kids races were competitive. You got a finisher's medal and an award if you were in the top 3. So, finishing on the podium when you're 5 is amazing. And that kind of led to to a lifestyle in triathlon. I raced all the way through the junior ranks, through world champs and etc. Up through to racing World Cup as it was in those days. And then from there, I got involved in slightly longer distance. And then I started working with RTU and did the coaching course, which I'm now a level 2 triathlon coach and have been coaching for around 14 years.
Now you're a level 2 triathlon coach. You're certified and qualified by the World Triathlon Union.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so that would be like
director and a coach.
As a race director and a technical official. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, and I actually spent the last sort of 6-7 years working with them, training coaches and officials around the world, putting on courses for them. I recently did one in the Americas now. Training coaches. But yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed that. And I think that kind of led to the sort of events I did was training the officials that led to putting on these big events. I was constantly at events like Continental Cups and World Cups. And I was exposed to them from a really young age. And that is what led into now what is me as a race director.
Now, there's a really important point that before I lose track of it, that I want to bring out. And that's the fact that there's an adage in adult learning that you don't know something very well until you teach it to someone else. And by the fact of you teaching other people, that's probably why your races go so well, because your races are fantastic. So and did that have something to do with it? Is you teaching other people how to do this?
Yeah, I think I mean I am I guess lifelong learner. I believe that if you never stop learning, that's with everything. I think anybody who believes they know it all is living in a different age. So I like to take everything, and I kind of drive some of my staff crazy because I break down each race when we're done and work out what we need to improve for next year. And the last thing they want to hear when they've just packed up 300 barricades is how we're going to do it better next year. Everybody wants to kind of get home and have a beer, and I'm already breaking down. Next year this is what I plan on doing, and this is how we're going to change things. And poor Alex, who's often in the car with me for 12 hours post the race, has to listen to that the whole way back. And it's been a lot easier. He's kind of learned that that's what I do, and he's tolerates me now, I guess. And then a couple of days later he will send me a response. But yeah, I think by teaching others definitely has improved what I am able to do, and I learn from all those others. I don't teach anybody without learning something from them. Right. I feel like quite often I learn more at a course than the participants do.
Oh, that's so important that you realize there's always room for improvement. And if you're not making it better, you're going backwards. So so I love your philosophy on that, and I'm glad a lot of people are hearing this. And you can treat your triathlons the same way. When someone does a triathlon and break it down and say, okay, what are we doing next time? What are we doing?
I definitely can't take credit for BBSC's events at the level they're at. I mean, the company is sort of 20 years old, and there have been some great event organizers in the past. And there's a lot of data, and a lot of the hard work has been done already. It's now just, I believe in creating better value, and that's the focus for us over the next couple months. We want to improve the value proposition that we offer, and improve the standard of the events. And that's kind of, if we can walk away with making improvements every time we put one on, then I think we're on the right track.
No, that's fantastic, John. I didn't know if you were waiting for a question. You had a question to ask? Oh,
I've got a ton of questions.
And me too.
And I love this. And it's so great to have you with BBSC, because they've been such a cornerstone for our triathlon community for such a long time, and they've always done a great job. And it's going to be really neat to see what value you're bringing and working on that. And I think we talked before, and I love BBSC, love doing the races, helping out where I can. So this is really neat. But I want to back up. I want to hear more about you getting involved in triathlon. You just sort of glossed over that you came from an active family, and then you got into triathlon. I mean, when was your first triathlon? And ultimately, I want to hear, when did you decide you were going to try to go pro?
And so before you get started on that, the one thing I want to point out was, you are the earliest triathlete I have ever talked to. It's like, how many people have done their first triathlon at 5 years old? So that's amazing. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's one of the reasons actually that I have got to focus on trying to put together a kids race in our different regions. I have a 5-year-old, 5 in April, and I'm struggling to find an event that I can take him to that he can participate in. So we have an active focus on getting that as well. And we realize that that's not going to, pay the salaries for the month, but it is a service we want to offer to the community, and something that I believe that I need to implement in order to grow the sport at a much lower level.
Grow in the sport, and you're making an investment not only in your future, but in the kids' future as well.
Yeah.
That's huge, and it's a noble thing that you're getting started with that. With the kids races. Are you going to have it this summer?
All right, Bob, you cut me off on my question. I want to hear more about his.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I have a bad habit of that, Travis. Sorry.
I want to hear your real entry into the sport leading into pro triathlete.
Yeah, so as I said, I started really young. I must have been 5 or 6, and I thoroughly enjoyed it all the way through. I think from then on, we kind of raced. We were lucky enough that we were based in Durban, where it's never winter, really. And we had 3 or 4 organizers that were really active in putting on triathlons, whether they be at the local swimming pool or at the local lake. We were able to race for months on end, all year round. So, and I raced all the way through, especially through high school. Through high school, I realized that I needed to get a little more focused on developing certain skills. So I actually joined and I qualified for what would be the state cycling team. And I kind of focused on cycling for a good couple years, all the way through to the end of high school. I ran cross country for the school, obviously, and I came from a swimming background. So swimming was a sort of 5 days, 10 times a week sort of scenario in our household. My brother and I were both competitive swimmers. So we try to keep a balance at some point, but triathlon was always, the sort of number one sport in our house growing up. And when I finished high school, I started my first year at university and realized that if I wanted to race properly, that I was going to have to go overseas. I had really understanding and leaving parents, and they committed to this course, and I took my studies and went online. Basically, I did them through correspondence, which led to multiple missed exams because I was never in the city that I put down on the paperwork or anything like that. But I got to go. I based myself in Croatia for a couple years, or at least a couple summers, which was sort of an hour and a half flight from everywhere. And it gave me opportunity to race all over the place. And that's sort of where, I guess that's first year in university, second year in university. That's where I kind of decided that I was going to focus on that. And that's how I got involved there.
Oh, that's wonderful. So a real international race experience that you've had in your career. So where were some of the favorite places to go and race, or maybe favorite places to go and train?
Oh, Croatia from a training perspective was amazing. Getting access to a 25-meter swimming pool was a challenge there. I struck a deal with the local hotel, which had a laned 25-meter pool that nobody ever used. And I kind of struck a deal with the manager and was able to go there anytime because the local swimming pool was absolutely packed. There were like 3 or 4 swim teams operating out of there. You could go there at 9 o'clock in the evening and it was packed. So but the riding was absolutely amazing. Along the coastline, you could head out any day, flat if you wanted flat. There were mountains everywhere if you wanted them. Traffic was so understanding. It was like riding in Italy. I guess where I was based in Croatia was Pula. So we were only about 150 kilometers. So what's that, 100 miles odd from Italy. So it had a very sort of Mediterranean feel to it. And the running trails and forests were aplenty. So that's why I went back there. Summertime was great. Wintertime can get really cold. So I would often head out of there as soon as it started to get too cold and go back home and live another summer.
Wow. That sounds exciting.
And you had an endless summer between Croatia and South Africa.
Yes. I mean, I was trained by an Australian coach at the time. So every now and again, I would head to Australia for summer, or at least for a couple months, just on the Gold Coast, or Brisbane, depending on where he was at the time, which was another perfect place to be based. There are many pro triathletes based on the Gold Coast. So it was great.
So then when did you start transitioning from being an athlete to being a race director or being involved with putting races on?
Well, I think I transitioned into coaching and officiating first. I got some injuries and I did the coaching course because I was interested in it mainly for myself, and started working with some athletes. And then I started working with ITU training coaches, and that, kind of sped up that process. And I very quickly got to, put on courses and work with some of the top coaches in the world, which was an incredible learning experience for me. And that was awesome. And then from the technical official side, at a young age, I got to go and officiate at the Youth Olympics. And that sped that process up. I was then kind of put into Africa and asked to put on continental cups and events that in countries that didn't have triathlon. My first experience was Mozambique. they had no federation, and we needed the African Games sort of in 6 months. And I was bought a plane ticket and sort of sent on my way. And that was my first real sort of dig in at a big event. I mean, we as a business, because I was involved in a triathlon retail business in South Africa, we put on racing series. We put on the largest triathlon series, but like a BBSC type business, not a African Cup type business. We put on mass participation events like we do here.
How many people were in these races? The big ones?
We started off, they were a similar size to where we're at now. We grew to bigger events than where we're at now. So, I mean, we would get to sort of 2,500 would be a good event for us.
Wow.
And those were good days as well. And they had a similar vibe, similar feel. It was a nice, and that's why it was so nice to get involved in BBSC. It kind of reminded me of where it kind of started.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Okay. So the officiating too. Yeah. I don't know which is harder. You tell me, officiating, race directing, or being an athlete.
I think the hardest job goes to the athletes. It's tougher out there when it's sort of in the 90s and you're on the run, especially at Lake Mead on that final section towards the finish. It can get pretty rough. But yeah, officiating has been fun. I got to officiate in Rio at the Olympics as well. I was the technical delegate in the WTS events in Abu Dhabi as well. So I've done some pretty big events for World Triathlon. And I officiating with that process.
And what is it that you actually did? What type of officiating?
Well, in Rio, I was an official on the bike course. But in Abu Dhabi, I was a technical delegate. So I was the link between the officiating team and the race organizer, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
One question, while I have a break here, when you were training coaches, this was something that was a question that came up for me. What is it that you learn from them when you were training coaches? You said you learned a lot from them. I'm wondering what training them could have taught you.
So I actually still work with World Triathlon and training coaches. I was, in fact, in sort of January, February, I was actively on a course with them.
Okay.
You learn different things from different coaches, whether that be knowledge. I mean, we had a guy who was really strong with a cycling background through UCI. So I was learning things, really on power and testing from this gentleman. But often at times it's actually coaching skills themselves, and how they deal with athletes, and even how they handle sessions, how they handle situations in sessions. So yeah, I mean, I think it's never the same. You're learning different things from different people all the time.
Sounds like you're learning from everything from actual techniques to your people handling skills.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think, for most people that's the case. If you're presenting a topic, there may be people in the room that have stronger areas of strength in certain topics than you do.
That is
you may
so
have a
great
doctor
that you
in the room.
realize that you
exactly.
You're open to learning. That's so cool.
Well, you've got such a great background. I'm really impressed with the international experience and what you're bringing in to BBSC. So let's talk a little bit about BBSC. A lot of people may not know all the races that you put on. So maybe tell us a little bit about the structure of BBSC. How many people do you work with, and what races do you have besides the ones we know here in Vegas Rage and Las Vegas Tri and Pumpkin Man, of course.
So we do 18 events a year, and they're split over Colorado, Utah, and obviously Nevada or Vegas area. We do 8 triathlons, 3 of which are in Colorado. And this year we actually have the state championships for Colorado and Utah. And those events will be Tri Boulder, which is a similar event to Las Vegas Triathlon in that it's got a longer distance race in it as well. And then in Utah, we have 2 events, one in basically straight after Rage in May, and then one in September before we head to Vegas for Las Vegas Tri. And those are Olympic and sprint distance events as well. And then we have a running calendar, which in fact, most of our events are in Vegas as far as running goes. We have obviously got a half marathon and a marathon in Colorado, and then we have a number of marathons and half marathons, 10Ks, 5Ks in Vegas. In fact, some of my favorite races, Turkey Trot, Las Vegas Turkey Trot is my favorite race of the season. On Thanksgiving Day, 6 tunnels to Hoover Dam. The course is amazing. It's probably some of the only running I've done over the last couple of years, is actually to go out on that course. And it's great fun. The vibe is amazing. And it's a good, fun event.
Yeah, we've enjoyed it. We did that every year for quite a while. It was only really the last few years that we've missed it for different reasons, out of the country or what have you. So you're right. That is a fun event, a fun day to get a little mileage in before you have to eat turkey. All right. So which would you say is your favorite race to put on then?
I think the hardest race and my favorite race is probably Pumpkin Man. It is by no means an easy race to put on. Logistically, it's our most challenging. We bring the biggest team to that event, and with the 2 transitions and the pack up midway through, with the sort of road closure at the top of the hill, there are a number of moving parts at Pumpkin Man that would make many race directors uncomfortable. Getting a proper handle on what's going to happen beforehand is really important. But it is an awesome event for us. I thoroughly enjoy it.
It is for us as well. I know everyone in our club who has done it is just raves about it. So it is a very fun event.
And I saw the bike course and, the sort of end to the bike course. I was like, sure, people come out to do this. It's a rough last couple miles, but everybody seems to enjoy it, and the vibe around the race is really, really cool. And that's what I take out of those races. I put these on because I thrive on people enjoying them. And if people aren't enjoying them, then I probably need to go and find something else.
I can tell that you enjoy when other people enjoy your races. I can tell it seems to be in your nature. So that's probably why they're good. I have a question.
Pumpkin Man, for me, that was the hardest part. Is I missed the finish line for such a long portion of the race because I was down at the water. And I obviously moved up towards the end of the day, but it was driving me crazy not knowing how things were going at the top. I trust the team up at the top. They know what they're doing, and the race was going well. I wasn't seeing the part that I enjoyed the most.
Have you ever had a part, had a race going on that things didn't go well and you had to adjust? What was an interesting race that you had to put on where you had to react and adjust midstream?
I think it was our 3rd year putting on our series in Johannesburg. We had a delayed start. Unfortunately, a pedestrian got knocked down, and the police and that were dealing with the thing. So we had to delay the start by almost an hour and a half by the time we got started. And we got in that race, the Olympic wave starts first. And that wave in that race was around 1,000 big, and they started off not in one wave, but they started off, and we had them in the water. And my bike course coordinator just started screaming over the radio, like, stop the race, stop the race, stop the race. And we couldn't get him to calm down. And we had a light airplane crash on the bike course while the swim was going on. So we literally had to divert everybody out of the water into their running shoes and onto the run, because it was within sort of 1.5 miles of the start of the bike. And it was the luckiest day, I believe, in my racing or event organizing career. Had I had everybody on the bike course, I would have had 2-way traffic on a section where an airplane came straight through. And that for me was I fielded so many angry people that morning because they didn't get to bike. And I was astonished by the reaction of some people. Like, it wasn't in my control at all.
It was nothing that it's not like you brought the plane down and you could control anything. I'm just
also
shocked.
had no option to divert the bike course at that late stage. Like, I had all the police at my disposal, but there was nowhere to go. We closed the road for that event. So it was a case of, I was just surprised by some of the reaction. Most people were understanding, but
Yeah,
Well,
I'm
you know,
shocked
it's
that
funny.
someone could be upset.
We talk with a lot of athletes, and we talk about how important it is to problem solve during the course of an event as an athlete. And here you've taken that skill and have applied
Absolutely.
it to race directing. And I imagine that you're solving problems all the time. We don't see them as an athlete, which is, you know, great. But I imagine that that's a skill set that you've really sort of transitioned from being an athlete to being a race director.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. There have been many races where behind the scenes we're treading water and managing situations as they
Yeah,
come up.
yeah,
And you know, a sign of a strong team and good decisions is that when you get to the end of the race and nobody knows anything about it.
that's right.
Um,
That's right.
Mhm.
and that's yeah, I mean, and if you build the right team and they're able to handle those pressures, I mean, I've had instances where unfortunately those situations have been too big for individuals in place, and we've had to move around and kind of replace them on the go.
Yeah,
And that's fully understandable. I don't expect somebody to be able to handle the same pressures.
yeah.
You know, that's why they're not the race director in some circumstances.
It's a hard job.
And they don't want
Yeah,
to
Well
be.
said.
yeah.
Yeah, they don't want that job. So you know, don't force them to make those decisions. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, the reality is that there are many races where we are making second decisions that affect the race and the safety of people on the course.
So I'm curious, you must, now I think I know the answer to this question. I'm just curious. You must be communicating with other race directors in terms of best practices and different ideas for races. And you must have a number of international friends who are race directors as well. Is that how you stay current with race directing?
Yes, I think so. I think my link and my current level at World Triathlon also helps in that I am constantly at the top of what is being done at the highest level.
Hmm.
And I have friends and contacts with many people, and I'm constantly reaching out. In fact, I was speaking to another race director today in Colorado about an issue with the registration and how he's handling things. I'm not afraid to reach out and ask people for you know, their advice and their help, and I am always on the end of a phone call if somebody needs, you know, the same thing. You know, people are often reaching out to me, and whether it be regarding permits or equipment or advice on a route or on how to change something, you know, I'm happy to take the time and sit down, because there may be a time where I'm going to need, you know, that help from somebody else. And then I've leaned on people many times, you know. Um, and yeah, I some people don't want to help you out. They see you as the opposition or whatever. And so be it, you know, there's no hard feelings. But
Um,
most people are happy to have a chat and give you their advice or opinion at least.
Hmm.
well, talking about the issues that you have as a race director, is there anything that you would want athletes to know that they don't know about being a race director? And, you know, is there anything that you would like, you know, that they don't realize that you would like them to realize?
I think most athletes are sort of aware that race directors are human and run normal lives behind the scenes. You know, there's the odd sort of person who kind of believes that our team works 24 hours a
Hmm.
day, even when we're on site. And I think for most people, there are understanding, and there are the odd people that, you know, when we're on site for a race, my team is actively working and stretched to the limit. So, you know,
Yeah,
we may respond slightly, we may be slower to respond to you. Like we may be on site all day and respond to emails at night,
yeah.
because that's how we operate.
Mhm.
And most of my team is the same. So, you know, if you have got something urgent, feel free to email us or drop us a message.
Will
We
do.
will respond as soon as we get a
Okay.
chance.
Yeah.
That's really the only thing that I would think.
That's
I mean,
good to know.
most people understand.
Mhm.
You know, we make mistakes as well. There are times where we award the wrong awards, or we issue somebody the wrong timing chip,
Mhm.
or you know, we make those mistakes, and
Yep.
you know, we kind of try and make good by everything that we can.
Mhm.
Well, it's such a quality organization, has been for a long time. It's great to have you at the helm now, and really neat to see this experience that you're bringing in. I've really enjoyed talking with you, Travis, and really getting to know this, and I love this, breadth of work and background you have from athlete to official to race director.
The
I'm
coach.
so impressed that you came to the Southwest and to our little community. We think it's a little community here in Las Vegas. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank you
Travis,
for
and
having me.
before we go, there's one of our members had a question, and I just wanted to pass it on to you. Is, for Rage for this year, is it still going to be on the the trail down the dirt road and turning up?
Great question. We're actively working on Rage at the moment, and Plan A, I think. Plan B is definitely our default at this stage. Plan A, we are looking to get rid of that section at the start and end of the run completely.
Well, that will make this person happy.
I mean, it was for me the biggest take home from Las Vegas Tri last year. I really was not comfortable with that section of the course, and it's something we're actively looking and working with the park in finding a solution to. They are going to grade the area for us before the event, but for me, that's not enough for me to send people down that channel. If anybody has any ideas on this, they're more than welcome to send them to me at this stage. My biggest concern at the moment is that the channel that runs, as in South Access Road runs, is really narrow for us to have two-way bike traffic and runners. And because of the way the transition is currently set up, we have an exit to transition at the bottom. Otherwise, the people at the top will literally rack their bikes and save themselves what is half a mile in that transition. So we're actively looking for a solution to get the run out up to the campgrounds road at this stage.
Oh yeah, okay.
And we're trying to do that as safely as possible without affecting the bike course in any way. With bikes coming down there at speed, we want to avoid any sort of pedestrian or runner bike scenario.
The Las Vegas Tri does not use that. They go out the other end. They go out the bottom of the transition area and go over. I don't know how to say it.
North. Yeah.
They go north, and then they go up that other access road and down the bike path. So they're
well. You know what? Why don't we we'll talk a little bit more offline,
Okay.
and
Sure.
we can throw around some ideas. But Travis, I really appreciate you being open to ideas and putting it out there. So if people have ideas, certainly shoot them in. It's a wonderful area to do a race, and we're really I'm glad that we have the races, and so you're a big part of the community. So thanks for being part of it. Thanks for joining us tonight, and I'm looking forward to Rage and the other races here in the Southwest and up at Southern Utah, because a lot of our folks do both of those. I know some go off to Colorado, but most of them do the Utah and the races down here. We'll call them local.
It was very enlightening and very entertaining too. Thanks so much for doing this, Travis.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks. Cheers.